So let's talk about the layering approach to learning and how that works and how it's a really natural and intuitive way for us to learn. When all of us learn, we do so a little bit at a time, progressively over a long period. So for example, when we learn how to walk, we don't learn how to walk all at once. We first start toddling a little bit, and then we eventually develop enough skills to learn how to run, then eventually we develop enough skills to learn how to jump. And even those we're kind of shaky at for a good long while until we get better and better and better at it as our muscles grow and develop and we acquire those skills. So the whole journey from learning how to walk starts maybe at, say, 15 months. And to learning how to like run and jump, you're not very good at those things for actually quite a few years after that. So it's not something that a kid sits down and says, okay, I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to like really focus hard on this learning, on this walking, and I'm going to get so good at walking all at once, neglecting every other skill that they're learning simultaneous. So kids do learn in a layered approach where they're learning how to walk, but they're not just learning how to walk. They're learning a plethora of other things. They're learning how to feed themselves and eat. They're learning how to throw things. They're learning how to throw their food. All these other things that are happening at the exact same time. That's a really natural way to learn.
Перейдя на удаленку, мы пытались сделать все как в офисе. Оказалось, это не так просто.
But like a kid who throws food, the downside with this approach is that it can be a little messy. It would be much easier to chart your progress if you learn just one skill at a time. It would be way cleaner, way less messy. So that's why I'm calling this style of learning block learning. It's a neat and tidy way of learning because you can basically devote all your energy to learning one thing, you can track your progress, then you can set it aside, pick up the next block, and focus on the next thing. But the downside of this approach is it doesn't work with our natural development, it's slower, and it feels more like a grind. So why is it slower and more of a grind? Let's use the example of learning how to play scales on the piano. So let's say you want to take the block style approach to learning piano, and you're brand new, you've pretty much never played before, and you say to yourself, I want to learn some scales. I want to get really good at scales. And then I'll do the next thing, but one thing at a time, and I know that the piano players really need to get good at their scales. Maybe I'm using a mocking tone, but it's really not at all. I say it with love because a lot of adults I've taught over the years have a kind of hold scales in some kind of reverence. So that's why this is my example, because it's maybe a little exaggerated, but it's not that far from the reality that I've encountered many, many times. So they sit down, they hunker down to learn 12 different major scales. That's their goal. So first they learn how to play every single one of the scales hand separate. They kind of blast through the memorization of it. They devote a lot of time and energy to memorizing the entire pattern of notes. Sometimes their memorization is a little shaky. Sometimes they have to review it quite frequently because it doesn't seem to stick in there very well, but that's all part of the work, right? And then once they can play all 12 major scales hand separate, they say, okay, well, can I do it 2 octaves instead of just 1? And then once they can do that and they spend a bunch of time practicing that, maybe they're practicing like an hour a day on scales, they decide, okay, I want to learn how to do it hands together. So they spend more days and even weeks learning how to play all those major scales hands together. Remember, this is a complete beginner. They're just kind of blocking this all in one. And then after they can play all their scales hands together, which maybe takes a couple weeks, then they say, okay, well, I want to be able to do it at a really high proficient level. So I'm going to do 4 octave hands together scales at 80 beats per minute in 16th notes. They spend a cumulative total, maybe like 2 months of their life getting really good at scales, or so the theory goes. The reality of it is you might devote 2 months of your life getting to this level with scales so that you can play all your major scales at 80 beats per minute and 16th notes. But you're probably not going to be super good at them because you're kind of rushing your development. So to put it into perspective, the layering approach to teaching scales would look something like this. You learn a few 5-finger scales when needed. So if you're learning a piece in the key of G major, maybe you'll start by learning a G 5-finger scale because it's kind of tying into the lesson. And then down the road, once you're a little bit more familiar with the key of G, perhaps you learn another piece in the key of G, and then you learn a full 1-octave hand-separate scale, G major, to go along with that piece. And then maybe some more time passes, and you have in your repertoire a handful of scales, maybe 10 or so major or minor scales that you can play about maybe like an octave. By the time you attempt your very first hands together scales, you might have already been playing piano for 3 years. So we keep hands separate for quite a while. We build it kind of slowly over a long period of time so that the process is much more intuitive and easy, and it supports the pieces that you're learning. In this way, when you get to, say, a grade 3 level and you start your very first hands together scales, you're already pretty familiar with, like, you have some easily memorized scales in your back pocket, so it's less of a grind at that first attempt. And then you're only attempting one octave, and you're only attempting a few scales that you know really, really well. By the time you're doing 4 octave scales with both hands at a pretty high speed, you've been playing piano for, I mean, for me anyway, I've been playing piano for at least 10 years before I started getting to that point. Unless you're some kind of savant, that's the approach that we would take. So we spread out learning scales over, say, let's say 12 years to get from tiny little 5-finger scales to very proficient 16th note, really fast, 4 octave hands together scales. 12 years. So versus 2 months in the block learning approach. And you might be thinking, okay, well, that's a lot of time. I want to be really good at scales way before 12 years. But again, if you are a beginner and you're kind of just pushing through everything all at once in a block style, you're probably going to be a little shakier with it because you're not allowing that really crucial time for your brain to form connections and to marinate. There's something that's really important, and I talk about this a lot, in the marination process, where you just let the skills soak in the back of your mind without actively working on them in a really direct way, constantly. It's the same sort of magic that happens when you practice a piece one day, it doesn't seem to be getting better, and then the next day you start playing it, and all of a sudden you're way ahead of where you were in the first day. Things happen in the background when you put things away. And you're not just learning scales over those 12 years, you're learning a huge amount of other things. So that's the main difference I find between the block and the layer approach, and why I find the block approach to be such a grind. Because really, if you introduce things when they're developmentally ready, when you're developmentally ready for them, when you're physically ready for them, it's so much easier and smoother to learn. Just think about if you had a 6-year-old who was just learning how to write, and instead of just learning how to do the letters and do basic reading, you were also teaching them complex grammatical rules. How well do you think those grammatical rules are going to stick? Versus when they're already fully competent with writing, and then a little bit later on, when they're a little bit older and they have a better understanding and a bigger vocabulary and they're pretty comfortable with writing. Introducing those concepts they're going to be better at it, they're going to be faster at it, it's going to be more intuitive, it's going to make more sense. So I like to follow a similar approach with music. The layering approach seems slow, natural, simple, and when you're combining learning with little bit of skills in tandem. So for example, if you're learning how to read notes, you're learning how to distinguish different tones by ear, you're learning how to do expressive phrasing and so on. If you have a whole bunch of these skills that are always being slightly improved, it keeps practicing interesting and engaging. So at a grade 1 level and a grade 2 level, in piano, you're doing pretty much the exact same things. At both of those levels, you're working on your ability to read and discern different rhythms in music. You're exploring how to play with better hand balance and things like that. The big difference between grade 1 and 2 is that grade 2 is a slightly upgraded version of grade 1. It's just a little harder. But you're learning all the same concepts. It's not like...
Карантинный кризис привели к огромному количеству банкротств по всей стране. Сейчас расскажу вам, как на этом получать одну.
You learn upper pedal technique in grade 1, and then proper phrasing in grade 2, and so on. You do phrasing and damper pedal in both grades. You just gain experience with it, and maybe the techniques of doing so get slightly harder each grade. It's so much more satisfying to play music in that way. So I have a list of skills that I would want every student about to start grade 1 to know. This was a guide for me, and it's something that I still use when I'm teaching lessons to basically make sure that when I'm teaching preparatory
what's that? You want to see someone install and run totally untested code on their Christmas tree? Wow, have I got some good news about how I'm spending my Monday night. So in my video about the 500 LED Christmas tree that I made, I said if people send in some code, I would try and run it. And there were several caveats that went with that. A lot of people have sent in code, so I thought I'd film myself spending an evening running the code. So there were several deals, which were, so I said you can't have any supplementary files, which I think I've stuck to. There's one where someone said it syncs with my music, and so I've got that lined up. We'll see what happens. I said I'm not going to install anything extra, and I haven't. I suspect that's going to take a lot of things out just by, I checked through the code to make sure there's nothing malicious in there. I think that might take out a few. And I said I'm not going to be debugging it. So, honestly, we were sent in on the order of, I would say, 60 bits of code. So I suspect the vast majority are not going to run, and I'm very sorry. I wish I could spend longer debugging it, but I cannot. So anyway, let's do it. So, by the way, it's now like early January. This tree is just falling apart. Like, if I just touch it, it's just, the needles are just crumbling off it. If I give that a good shake, it would be a totally bare tree. So it has to happen now or never. And then after this is done tomorrow, the tree is going to become mulch. There you are, as much as I have enjoyed it. And the LEDs we put away for another day. So, here we go. So that was my random plain code that I was running there. I've just stopped it. And what you can see now in front of me here, that's the terminal window I have open. Which is SSH to the Raspberry Pi over there. So you can see what's going on. That's the whole deal. So there you go. And I'm now in a folder called Viewer Code. And if I list all the files in Viewer Code, there you go. So that's it's kind of what we're dealing with here. So I'm going to run those bits of code one at a time, and we'll see what happens. It's only fair, I think, to start with some of my code. So the very first thing we're going to run, this is my original spin program. There you go. Just to show you, everything is still working. The tree is working fine. You can see I've just got a plane which rotates as well as going up and down. The center of rotation goes up and down very gently, and you get this fantastic effect. So the way this works is, we're going to go through all the files in alphabetical order. We play it for a while. We'll see how it works. If it doesn't work, we go on to the next file. If it does work, we marvel at it. Eventually we get bored. I do a keyboard interrupt, which stops it in its tracks, and then I've rigged up a hotkey, which blanks the tree, and then loads up the command for the next one. And the first one out of the rank is called baubles. So the off.py500, that is just my code telling every single LED to turn off. There are 500 LEDs. Don't know why I wrote it that you can change the number of that turn off, but I did. And so I run that, because otherwise the LEDs, they just stay the color. As long as they got power, they would persistently be that color. And so you've got to actively tell them to stop doing that. And so that's what I've done. So here we go. First one, out of the ranks, baubles.py, and away. Min angle is not defined. Very sorry, I'm going to count that as not running. Someone forgot to define their minimum angle. We're moving on to boids.py. Alright. No module named OpenGL. Well, I haven't got OpenGL. Oh. Okay. This is going to be the exception, not the rule. Pip install. Let's just have a quick look if we can install OpenGL. So, if you're not familiar with pip, it's a great thing that if you've got something's not installed on the computer and Python's like, I haven't got that thing. You just pip install it, and this program goes away, has a look. If it finds it on the internet, it'll bring it back, and there you go, successfully installed. Okay, so now, boids, whoever wrote boids, you're lucky. No, still not happy. Okay, we're not doing that again, I'm sorry. I should have stuck with my no debugging, no installing anything policy. So anyway, okay, so up next, bouncing light.py. Pixels is not defined. Okay, up next, Dance at the Tannenbaum. Wow. No module named Mat Plot. I didn't promise I had that. Oh my god, this better not be dirtycodes.py. That's terrifying. No module named MPL toolkits. Well, how about that? Wow, this video is going to be over a lot faster than I expected. Whoa! It's working! Someone said it didn't work in code. It's just blinking. Oh, it blink with different colors. Oh, it's describing what it's doing. Oh my goodness. Blink with the sine function? Oh, there are sine waves coming down, I guess. That's lovely. Hey, whoever wrote, what is this? Fanimator. I think they emailed. I think actually that one was on GitHub and it was emailed to me. Look at that, it's got waves going through this way now. Oh my goodness, that's lovely. Using a general function to do a selection of colors on X. There you go. And it says what it's doing. Oh my goodness. I was getting nervous there, given the first, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 5 did nothing. I'm very sorry to people who put the effort into writing those bits of code. I'm very, very sorry they didn't run. Fanimator. It's come through with the goods. Wow. I wonder how long this goes on for. A linear wave interpolated with multiple colors. That's really nice. Look at that one go. Oh my goodness, it just cycles through the different effects. I don't want to choose a favorite, but Fanimator is an early number 1. I don't know if I want to stop this. We've got a lot more to get through. Okay, you know what, I'm going to have to stop. I'm very sorry, I'm going to have to stop it. A square wave on spherical coordinates using coordinates transformer. That's great. A little stroboscopic, but awesome. I probably would not be allowed to leave that running just in the corner of the room. It's nice, you know, provides a bit of ambience. And okay, we're stopping you. That was amazing. Okay, first one worked. Here we go.
Новый сериал ТНТ.
Без меня он будет несчастен. Без меня он будет несчастен.
Прикуси язык. Ты что такое говоришь, а?
Не сумпуйся. Зараза неблагодарная.
Они не способны к самостоятельной жизни.
Ты видел меня голой в душу?
Как ты? Фу!
Пацан, ты как?
Мне плевать, кто вы. С 10 января в 8 вечера
А это кто?
Это моя мама.
Вот.
на ТНТ.
Here we go. Up next, fire animation. Oh, it's working! That's nice. What is that? It's a fire, I guess. Good work, fire animation person. That is delightful. I'm using the original file names people sent in. So if you're waiting to see if your code appears, if you've renamed my sample code into some kind of unique file name, then you'll see them pop up as I run them. If you didn't, if you left it the generic name, I've picked a name which I think describes what you claim your code will do. And so I think fire animation from memory, I named it that because whoever wrote this had left it with the default name. But that's very cool, very, very cool. Nicely done. I mean, it's no Fanimator, but it's good. Okay, up next, what we got here? Fireflies. Oh, that's nice. I assume they're fireflies moving around in a random pattern. It's pretty cool. Good job, Fireflies. Nicely done. Okay, moving on. Up next. Maybe run in tree.py. Oh, this is terrifying. No. Nah. NumPy. Can't multiply sequence by non-int type NumPy. Okay, NumPy is installed, but something has gone wrong with that there. We've got next. Octahedron rotation. Here comes a oh my goodness. It's a rotating octahedron, I guess. No, wait, I guess it's... Okay, I'm going to pick a colour and follow it. So if I pick the green, no, there's like an orange, red... Oh, it's just changing colours. I think this looks like it's based on my rotating plane, but it's multiple colours, and they change whenever the plane moves through them. And I can count One, two. I can't, because an octahedron, what have we got there? We've got 6 corners, so there could be 6 different colours, maybe? 8 faces, hence octahedron, but I think, that's really nice, I like that one, that's good, that's in second place. Behind, oh my goodness, I didn't even notice, it's printing out all the coordinates as it goes. Nice touch, thanks for doing that. That's, I don't know what I enjoy looking at more. I can look at the coordinates coming out, or I can look at there you go, okay, enough of you. Okay, up next, what do we got? Painful to view. Painful to view. You're not kidding. Claims it's running. So the person who wrote, oh, there's like one LED on. What is that doing? They're not kidding when they say painful to view. There's a single LED down there. I don't know, maybe it's the first one in the sequence. It could be LED 0. It's cycling through colours. And that's it. So painful to view, I'm afraid, was boring to view. But thanks for trying. Okay, up next, purlin. That's a type of noise. So I guess this is a random noise generator. Wow. I mean, technically, this could be random noise, and there's a tiny statistical probability that we're just getting all zeros. Can't rule that out, so it could be working as intended. Feels very unlikely. I think it's broken somehow. But it is running, it's just not displaying anything. Oh, wait, it ran and then stopped. Oh, that was short-lived. Okay, anyway, up next. Rainbow and Fireplace. Oh, I split this into 2 files, so someone, there was a bit in there we had to comment a bit out to do the 2 different versions, and so I regret doing that. I went in, and so this is the rainbow one first, I guess. Oh, that's nice. Psychedelic, but nice. I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's in your face. Actually, on screen, because I can see the screen on my camera, it looks a bit better than in real life. It's very, on the screen, maybe it's because it's tiny, it looks better. There you are. So that's rainbow. Shall we stop that? My goodness. And let's see, I should there. And Fireplace. Oh. The same NumPy problem. So it like it might be my fault. Okay, moving on. Rehoboam. Oh. That's cool. What is it? It's just like red dots moving around. It's nice. If you coded that one, very enjoyable. I like what you're doing. Bizarrely, that could be the Fireplace one that we didn't have a second ago. So I totally would have accepted that as Fireplace, but there you are. That's cool. I don't know what it's doing. Thing is, like, that could be a really clever implementation. Like some people did Game of Life, some people did all sorts of cellular autonoma, random noise. I think somewhere in here there's like a smart snake where it plays a game of Snake, but automatically. So this could be one of those things, but my tree is just so low resolution that it doesn't work. There's a sentence I didn't think I'd ever use, but it's pretty predictable I would have used that. Okay, RGB spheres. Here we go. Yep. Now, here's one of the problems with RGB values. Whoa! Oh, that's happening. A lot of RGB colors were very washed out. And when I wrote my original code for the tree, I had to write my own fading setup, right? So in the software, I want to light LED up and then fade it down. And I just took it in a straight line from that RGB color back to the origin of all zeros. Which works, but you go through some weird colors. There's a whole world of color, like theory and perception and stuff that I didn't go near. Well, that's nicer. Those colors are good. And so often, if you're just naively approaching RGB as a mathematician, you get some strange colors, you get unnatural color progressions because you're thinking about them as a 3D point or as, just 3 separate values and then moving around and changing them as such. And you're not factoring in how humans would actually perceive those colors or how RGB LEDs would actually display them. I'm sure some people did. I did not. Anyway, that's lovely. That's very nice. Good job, RGB spheres. Okay. Moving on. Here we go. RGB spheres again. Is it the same file? It's the same file. I'm sorry. So I went. So problem is, I've got a GitHub, and people would email me files, and so I've just accidentally got this one twice. And so someone did point out, because I've got a GitHub, so I can put code I want to share on there. I don't really actively look after that. Like, I check in, I see what people are doing, but I'm not GitHub fluent. A friend of mine, Oliver, who's helped out with a lot of my programming, is now helping me keep an eye on the GitHub, because people are putting in pull requests and stuff, and they put a lot of work into things, and I'm just letting them languish, like, in GitHub purgatory by ignoring them, and that's not fair. People put in work, they should, it shouldn't just sit there with nothing happening to it. So I'm going to be better now at responding to stuff on GitHub, which is to say, Oliver is. Some of that flashing, by the way, is if the current draw, the energy draw, exceeds what my power supplies can serve up. And then you get this weird strobing effect where there's not enough juice to go around. Just so you know. It's not people haven't necessarily programmed something flashing like mad. It's just my terrible power supplies. Okay, coming up on salesman. This is a traveling salesman problem simulation. Board is not defined. No. So that would be part of the code designed to interact with sending the stuff to the LEDs. You've got to import a board, and someone has broken that part of the code. I'm very sorry. Okay, up next, Sierpinski triangle. Now that jittering, that's the power problem I mentioned before, so ignore that. I did in the code tell people to keep the total brightness down, but I can see Sierpinski. I'm convinced it's in there. I'm going to stop that because it's not doing good things for my power supply. Simplex noise. No module found, open simplex. So that feels like a user-written one, so maybe they wrote that and it's not important somehow. That's a shame. Okay, up next, here we go. Singing tree. Singing tree. No module name sound file. I bet that was like a stereo equalizer effect, where you play music or something and this would move up and down. And a lot of people requested that, and I didn't do it originally because I didn't have a way, there's no microphone or anything rigged up in my Raspberry Pi, so I couldn't find a good way to get an input. And there obviously there are ways I could do that, but I couldn't do it just the way things were. I'd have to find a way to either get a microphone input or put sound files on there, and then you've got to sync them up with playing them somewhere else. I didn't do it. So thank you very much. Someone has written, I assume is an equalizer thing, for a singing tree, but I've not supplied said no supplementary files. Oh, that'd be really cool. Anyway, up next, we've got Smart, oh, this is the Smart Snake. Oh boy, okay, here we go. It's going to play Snake on its own. It's running. Oh, there it goes. Oh, that's amazing. So this is actually working. So you'll see like a dot will light up somewhere, and then the snake will go and get it and eat it, and then it gets a little bit longer. It's running quite fast, so it's a little hard to spot. But if you watch it carefully, somewhere in the 3D tree, a light will turn on, and then the snake will get there to eat it. And then the colours seem to track back along the snake. That's so good. Because now there's a long chain of LEDs which are the snake, which are totally separate from the long, oh it's restarted, from the long chain of LEDs that are the wire. Don't know why I find that so pleasing. Oh, that's really good.
Он, наверное, реально играет это, да?
That's great. It's going to loop again in a second. You know what? I've finished my coffee. This drags.
Похоже, что он на самом деле играет.
I'm going to get a beer. Watch the snake for a second. That's so good.
Ну, в смысле, там не просто луп, наверное. Ну, я не знаю, вроде как бы, смотри, второй раз-то было короче, потому что... Посмотри, конечно.
I mean, this is my genuine night's entertainment. That's me trying to find a bottle opener. It's me finding a bottle opener.
Bottle opener.
I hope someone walks into the room right now while you're watching this and you're staring at a screen watching what, to the untrained eye, just looks like a terrible Christmas tree with bad, inconsistent lights. When in reality, it's a game of Smart Snake. Let's just reset. There we go. Look at that. There's the dot that goes and eats it. Ah, Fanomator. I think it was Fanomator. Equal first. Equal first. That's amazing. Okay. Up next, what do we got? Sync to intro. Oh, okay. This is the one exception I made. Someone downloaded. Well, they didn't download. They.
Плохо живешь, что ли? Ну, тогда он говорит, что ли? Hello, Ахмат. А, подожди, тут надо брать. Рахмат.
Ripped my theme song, the new mixed version, from the beginning of the video. Howard Carter, my music person, puts a lot of effort into ridiculous remixes of the stand-up mass theme. And so this person here, so if the code works, it should blink 4 times and you start the theme song on the implied 5th blink. So let's just see if it runs first before we get too excited. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I'm going to cancel it. Okay, what are we going to do now? So I'm going to run it again. And I've then got to play the song. So I'm going to play it in the room so I can enjoy it. If it doesn't get picked up off my mic, I'll edit it in afterwards. But I'm trying to avoid having to edit this video because I'm a man of finite free time. So here we go. I'm going to play it again, and then I'm going to go start the song on the 5th one. So here we go. Play. Cue up the song. I think I got it. I think that's matching. It's nice. It's building something. It's just doing that. Oh, it broke! It broke! It broke! Oh. Argument 3 of type. That's really disappointing. That was going so well. I'm very sorry whoever wrote that. We tried and it failed. Okay.
Замушка. Ригоп стопнулся. Ригопник. Ригопостопник. Меня, знаешь, немножко утешает. Ладно, утешает. Так наоборот. Да. То так, значит, так, значит.